Dawn Brancheau. The name itself evokes a sense of sunshine, of optimism, of a life lived fully and passionately. But behind the smile, behind the undeniable charisma, was a deep-seated love for the ocean and its inhabitants. A love that would ultimately propel her to the pinnacle of her profession, but also lead her down a path toward unimaginable tragedy. This isn't just the story of an orca attack. It's the story of a dream, meticulously crafted from the ground up. A dream built on dedication, respect, and an unwavering belief in the power of connection between humans and animals. It's the story of Dawn Brancheau, and how she rose to become one of SeaWorld's most celebrated trainers. Born Dawn Therese Laverdy in 1969, in the blue-collar town of Cedar Lake, Indiana, she wasn't raised on the coast, surrounded by the salty air and crashing waves that would later define her life. In fact, Indiana is about as far from the ocean as you can get in the continental United States. But even landlocked, Dawn felt an undeniable pull toward the water. It wasn't a fleeting childhood fascination. It was a deeply rooted calling. From a young age, Dawn was captivated by marine life. While other kids were playing house or sports, Dawn was glued to the television, watching documentaries about Jacques Cousteau and his underwater adventures. She devoured books about dolphins and whales, filling her imagination with images of these majestic creatures gliding through the ocean depths. But it wasn't just the animals themselves that fascinated her. It was the connection that humans could have with them. She saw the trainers at marine parks, interacting with dolphins and sea lions, building trust and performing incredible feats together, and she knew, with absolute certainty, that that was what she wanted to do with her life. This wasn't a phase. It was a destiny. This wasn't just some whimsical childhood ambition. Dawn was laser-focused. She understood that pursuing this dream required more than just a love for animals. It required dedication, discipline, and a solid education. She excelled in school, driven by the knowledge that every good grade, every completed assignment, was a step closer to her goal. After high school, Dawn enrolled at St. Mary's College of Notre Dame, Indiana. She double-majored in psychology and biology, a combination that reflected her understanding of the complex needs of both humans and animals. She knew that understanding animal behavior was crucial, but she also recognized the importance of understanding human psychology to effectively communicate and connect with them. College wasn't just about academics for Dawn. She was determined to gain practical experience. During her summers, she volunteered at a local animal shelter, caring for abandoned dogs and cats. It wasn't exactly working with marine mammals, but it taught her valuable lessons about animal care, handling, and the importance of patience and compassion. Every interaction was a learning opportunity. And then the moment arrived. During her junior year, Dawn landed an internship at SeaWorld Orlando. This wasn't just a stepping stone. It was a dream realized. Finally, she was surrounded by the animals she had admired from afar for so long. She spent her days observing the trainers, learning their techniques, and soaking up every piece of information she could. She started with the grunt work, cleaning enclosures, preparing food, and assisting with basic animal care. But she approached every task with enthusiasm and a relentless work ethic. She made coffee, cleaned fish guts, and did every job that seasoned trainers didn't want to do, and she did it with a smile. Dawn knew that paying your dues was part of the process, and she was more than willing to do whatever it took to prove herself. Her dedication didn't go unnoticed. The trainers recognized her passion, her work ethic, and her genuine connection with the animals. They saw in her the potential to become something truly special. After graduating from college in 1991, Dawn was offered a full-time position at SeaWorld Orlando. This was it. The culmination of years of hard work and unwavering dedication. She was officially a SeaWorld trainer, but the journey had just begun. Dawn started her training with the park's smaller marine mammals, the sea lions and otters. She learned the basics of animal training, reinforcement techniques, and the importance of building trust and rapport. She excelled at these foundational skills, quickly mastering the art of positive reinforcement and shaping animal behavior. It wasn't long before she set her sights on the park's crown jewels, the orcas. These majestic creatures, the apex predators of the ocean, were the stars of SeaWorld, and Dawn was determined to work with them. The path to becoming an orca trainer was long and arduous. It required years of experience, extensive knowledge of orca behavior, and an unwavering commitment to safety. Dawn dedicated herself to learning everything she could about these incredible animals. She studied their social structures, their communication methods, and their individual personalities. She spent countless hours observing the orcas, watching their interactions with each other and with their trainers. She took every opportunity to assist the senior orca trainers, shadowing them during shows, learning the intricate choreography and understanding the subtle cues that were used to communicate with the whales. She learned about their health and well-being, their dietary needs, and the importance of maintaining a clean and stimulating environment. Dawn quickly developed a reputation for her calm demeanor, her unwavering patience, and her ability to connect with the orcas on a deep level. She wasn't intimidated by their size or their power. She approached them with respect and a genuine desire to understand them. She understood that these weren't just performing animals. They were intelligent, sentient beings with complex emotions and individual personalities. And she believed that the key to working with them was to build a relationship based on trust, respect, and mutual understanding. Over time, Dawn rose through the ranks, earning the trust and respect of her colleagues and the orcas themselves. She became known for her signature performances, her graceful movements, and her ability to create a seamless connection between herself and the whales. She wasn't just a trainer. She was a performer, an athlete, and a conservationist all rolled into one. She used her platform to educate the public about orcas, to inspire them to care about the ocean, and to promote conservation efforts. Dawn became the face of SeaWorld. Her image was featured in advertisements, on posters, and in brochures. She was a media darling, appearing on television shows and in magazine articles. But despite her fame and success, she remained grounded and humble. She never forgot her roots, and she always remembered the dream that had brought her to SeaWorld in the first place. She was living proof that hard work, dedication, and a genuine passion can make even the most ambitious dreams a reality. But even in the midst of this incredible success, a storm was brewing. A storm that would ultimately shatter Dawn's dream and change the world of marine parks forever. Tilikum, the name itself, carries a weight, a shadow of tragedy that stretches back decades. But to understand the events of February 24th, 2010, we need to delve into Tilikum's past, a past born not in the wild, boundless ocean, but in the cold, unforgiving waters of Iceland in November 1983. A young Tilikum, barely 2 years old, was forcibly taken from his family pod near Iceland. Imagine the terror, the confusion, the heartbreaking cries of his mother echoing unanswered across the waves as he was ripped away. a scene replayed countless times in the history of marine parks. These weren't rescues, they were captures, often targeting the youngest, most vulnerable members of a pod, those easiest to train and most profitable to display. The capture itself was brutal. Nets closed in, separating Tilikum from everything he knew. The chaotic noise of the boats, the panicked vocalizations of his family, the sheer physical trauma of being hauled aboard, these were the experiences that would forever shape his life. And for what? For human entertainment. For profit, he was initially held at Hafnarfjord Marine Zoo, a small, cramped facility in Iceland. For over a year, he endured the stress of confinement, the boredom of repetitive routines, and the constant presence of humans, a stark contrast to the complex social structure and vast hunting grounds he was born into. Imagine trading the endless ocean for a concrete tank, the intricate communication with your family for simple commands barked in a language you don't understand. Then, in 1984, Tilikum was transferred to Sealand of the Pacific, a marine park, in Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. This is where his troubled history truly began to unfold. Sealand's orca enclosure was notoriously inadequate. Tilikum was housed with two older, dominant female orcas, Haida 2 and Nutica 4. These females subjected him to relentless aggression, a behavior known as raking. The physical manifestations of raking were visible. Deep parallel scratches across Tilikum's body, evidence of the constant attacks from the older females. This wasn't simple dominance displays, it was outright bullying. Tilikum, being the youngest and least assertive, was constantly forced to submit. He was often denied food, relegated to the least desirable positions in the tank, and generally subjected to a constant state of stress and fear. The lack of space exacerbated the situation. There was nowhere for Tilikum to escape, nowhere to assert himself. Think about the dynamics of a human prison, the constant pressure, the power imbalances, the lack of control. Now imagine that, but with no possibility of parole, no hope of freedom. That was Tilikum's reality. During the off-season, when the park was closed to the public, the three orcas were confined to an even smaller, completely dark metal enclosure. This cramped space, barely larger than their own bodies, further intensified the tensions between them. Imagine being crammed into a dark metal box with your bullies for hours on end, with nothing to do but stew in your own frustration and fear. This confinement was a pressure cooker, and Tilikum was trapped inside. The stress and aggression Tilikum endured at Sealand had profound consequences. He began to exhibit unusual behaviors, signs of deep psychological trauma. He became withdrawn, often floating motionless at the surface of the tank, seemingly unresponsive to his surroundings. He would grind his teeth, a clear indication of anxiety and stress. These weren't signs of a healthy, thriving animal. They were desperate cries for help, ignored by those who profited from his captivity. And then tragedy struck. In February 1991, a young part-time trainer, Kelty Byrne, slipped and fell into the orca tank while attempting to retrieve a bucket. The three orcas, including Tilikum, surrounded her. What followed was horrific. The orcas pulled her under the water, dragged her around the tank, and prevented her from surfacing. Other trainers watched in horror, unable to intervene. Kelty Byrne drowned. Sealand initially downplayed Tilikum's role in the incident, claiming that the two female orcas were primarily responsible, but the truth was far more complex. Tilikum, subjected to years of abuse and confinement, was undoubtedly a participant in the tragedy. While it's impossible to know the exact motivations of the orcas, the incident highlighted the inherent dangers of keeping these powerful, intelligent animals in captivity. The death of Kelty Burns sparked outrage and controversy. Sealand of the Pacific faced intense scrutiny and ultimately closed down. Tilikum, however, was not released back into the wild. Instead, he was transferred to SeaWorld Orlando, where he would spend the rest of his life. SeaWorld presented Tilikum as a valuable breeding asset, a source of future generations of captive orcas. They downplayed his role in the Sealand incident, focusing instead on his potential to contribute to their breeding program. He became SeaWorld's most prolific breeder, fathering 21 calves. But even at SeaWorld, the signs of Tilikum's troubled past persisted. He remained unpredictable and difficult to work with. He was often isolated from the other orcas, further exacerbating his stress and loneliness. SeaWorld implemented a series of safety protocols to protect trainers from Tilikum, but these protocols were often inconsistent and inadequate. Tilikum continued to exhibit unusual behaviors, including aggression towards other orcas and trainers. He would often refuse to perform, showing signs of agitation and stress. These were all warning signs, red flags that should have prompted SeaWorld to reconsider their handling of Tilikum. But the allure of profit, the pressure to maintain the illusion of safety and control overshadowed these concerns. The reality was this: Tilikum was a deeply traumatized animal. His capture, confinement, and the constant stress of performing had taken a profound toll on his mental and physical well-being. He was a ticking time bomb, and on February 24th, 2010, that bomb exploded with devastating consequences. But to understand that fateful day, we need to look at the life of Dawn Brancheau, a trainer who dedicated her life to these magnificent creatures, a woman who believed in the power of connection and trust. But that is the next tragic part of the story. The afternoon of February 24th, 2010, started like any other at SeaWorld Orlando. The sun was shining, families were streaming through the gates, eager to experience the thrill of marine life encounters. For Dawn Brancheau, a seasoned and deeply respected trainer, it was just another day in a career she had dedicated her life to. But this day would be different. This day would become a turning point, a tragic marker etched in the annals of marine park history. Tilikum. The orca at the center of this tragedy had already participated in the Dine with Shamu show earlier in the day. This particular interaction wasn't a performance in the traditional sense. It was more of an opportunity for guests to observe trainers working with the whales in a less structured environment while they enjoyed a meal. Following this, Tilikum was moved to a smaller pool, one designed for more private interactions and training sessions. Dawn, with her signature ponytail and warm smile, was preparing to engage with Tilikum in a series of exercises. These weren't the high-energy leaps and splashes of the main shows. They were more focused, designed to reinforce established behaviors and build upon their existing relationship. Remember, Dawn wasn't just going through the motions. She genuinely believed in the connection she shared with these animals. The sequence of events that unfolded next is pieced together from eyewitness accounts, security footage, and the subsequent investigation. But the details are fragmented, leaving room for speculation and debate to this day. Dawn was lying on her stomach on a submerged platform, interacting with Tilikum. She was rubbing his body, speaking to him in calm, reassuring tones. This was a common practice, a way to build trust and reinforce positive associations. At some point during this interaction, Tilikum reached out and took hold of Dawn's ponytail. Now, here's where the accounts diverge slightly. Some suggest that Tilikum simply pulled Dawn into the water. Others believe that he may have gently tugged at her hair, perhaps as a sign of playfulness or curiosity. Either way, the outcome was the same. Dawn Brancheau was pulled beneath the surface. What happened next was a horrifying display of power. Tilikum, a 60-an apex predator, began to thrash violently. He pulled Dawn deeper into the water, preventing her from surfacing for air. Witnesses described a scene of chaos and panic, the water churning with the immense force of the whale. Trainers and staff rushed to the scene, desperately trying to intervene. They employed established emergency protocols, including throwing fish at Tilikum in an attempt to distract him and using nets to try and separate him from Dawn. But nothing seemed to work. Tilikum remained fixated on Dawn, refusing to release her. The situation escalated rapidly. It became clear that this was no accident, no playful interaction gone wrong. This was an attack, a deliberate act of aggression from an animal with a complex and troubled history. After what felt like an eternity, but was likely only a matter of minutes, Tilikum surfaced with Dawn. But it was too late. Dawn was unresponsive, her body limp and lifeless. The scene was gruesome. Tilikum had inflicted severe trauma, including fractures, dislocations, and the near severing of her left arm. The park was immediately placed on lockdown. Guests were ushered out, many in tears, struggling to comprehend what they had just witnessed. The vibrant atmosphere of SeaWorld was replaced by an eerie silence, broken only by the sounds of sirens and the hushed voices of first responders. Behind the scenes, a frantic effort was underway to recover Dawn's body. Tilikum was eventually coaxed into a smaller medical pool, allowing the recovery team to safely retrieve her. Paramedics rushed to the scene, but their efforts were in vain. Dawn Brancheau was pronounced dead at the scene. The news sent shockwaves around the world. How could this happen? How could a trainer with Dawn's experience and dedication be killed by an animal she had worked with for years? The questions were immediate and relentless. The aftermath was devastating. For Dawn's family, the loss was immeasurable. For her colleagues, the trauma was profound. And for SeaWorld, the incident triggered a crisis that would challenge its very existence. The park closed its doors temporarily as investigators descended upon the scene. OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, launched a full investigation, meticulously examining every aspect of SeaWorld's training practices, safety protocols, and the history of Tilikum himself. The investigation revealed a disturbing pattern. Tilikum, due to his size and unpredictable behavior, had been involved in the deaths of 2 other people prior to Dawn's. These incidents, while tragic, hadn't resulted in significant changes to SeaWorld's policies or practices. The report painted a picture of a park that prioritized entertainment and profit over the safety of its trainers. It highlighted the inherent risks of working in close proximity to such powerful and unpredictable animals. It questioned the ethics of keeping orcas in captivity, particularly animals like Tilikum, whose history of aggression suggested they were simply not suited for life in a theme park. OSHA ultimately issued several citations against SeaWorld, citing numerous safety violations and demanding significant changes to the way trainers interacted with orcas. SeaWorld contested the citations, arguing that its existing safety measures were adequate and that the risks were inherent in the profession. The legal battle that ensued was lengthy and contentious. It forced SeaWorld to confront uncomfortable truths about its operations and its relationship with these magnificent creatures. The incident served as a catalyst for a broader debate about the ethics of keeping orcas in captivity, a debate that continues to this day. Don Brancheau's death was a tragedy that exposed the dark side of marine park entertainment. It forced a revaluation of the risks involved and the ethical implications of confining these intelligent and emotionally complex animals for human amusement. Her story serves as a stark reminder of the power of nature and the importance of respecting the boundaries between humans and the wild. It was a devastating end, and one that would forever change the landscape of the marine park industry.